Chapter 25. Am I under arrest? Ashley asked Detective Lanson as they stood in Neil's foyer. Police officers streamed back and forth through the open front door next to her, but they were nothing more than a blur. She had tunnel vision. All she could see was her future self, 9 months pregnant and locked behind prison bars. How could the detective possibly believe that she murdered Neil? Remember I said... Okay. She had no motive, no reason to want Ray's brother dead. In fact, it was just the opposite. Losing Neil meant losing an opportunity to find Ethan. And Neil had died several hours earlier, no less than 12 based on her forensic studies. If she killed him, she would have fled. She wouldn't have stuck around for the police to find her. Lanson motioned toward the doorway leading into the living room. She complied, moving out of the foyer. A knot formed in her chest as she waited for his answer. Following his direction, she headed towards the sofa but remained standing. "I'm not arresting you," he said, his eyes soft, "but procedure has to be followed." She stared at him, wondering what that meant exactly. "Normally, you'd have to go down to the station," he explained, "but everything can be done here." She realized he was trying to make the process easier for her, but she was unsure of what the procedure entailed. Are you going to have me fingerprinted?" she asked. He nodded. "That's part of it, and your fingers will be swabbed for gunpowder residue." A memory of her father teaching her to shoot flashed into her mind. "I fired my pistol yesterday at my father's house in Metler Ridge." "Okay. Anything else you need to tell me?" Ashley thought for a moment. "I came in through the back door, but like I said before, it was unlocked. Are you going to charge me with breaking and entering?" "No." He looked directly into her eyes. "Did you touch the body or brush up against it?" Making sure she didn't come in contact with Neil's body had jumped to the forefront of her mind as soon as she found him. She shook her head. "I only touched the things I've already told you about, and I used the tissue to open the file drawer in the desk." He seemed satisfied with her answer. "Your clothes need to be tested for blood splatter," he told her. "You'll have to wear some of my things home, unless you got a change of clothes in your car." That was the reason he asked whether she rubbed against the body, in case they found blood or tissue on her clothing. She was safe in that department. "No, I don't have anything else with me to wear." He nodded. "Just sit tight. One of the techs will be with you in a minute." Ashley sighed and sank onto the sofa as Lansing disappeared into the foyer. Her fishing expedition had turned into a nightmare. Neil had been shot and she recently fired a gun. It had been foolish for her to be concerned about breaking and entering charges when in reality she could be arrested for murder. She studied court cases where innocent people had been convicted of heinous crimes. She couldn't become another statistic. She had a baby to protect now. And now you're thinking about that? You should have thought about that before. Feeling restless, she rose from the sofa and wandered through the doorway into the kitchen. A man inside taking photographs stopped his work and shot her a warning glance. "Stay out of the way," it said. She ducked back into the living room and was met by a pretty middle-aged brunette wearing a white suit. "I'm Maggie," she said. "Ashley, right?" "Yes, that's right. I need to collect a few samples from you," the forensic tech continued, "but we can't do it in the house." Ashley followed Maggie outside to a white van parked in Neil's driveway. When the doors were open, she was astonished to see a work table, stools, multiple storage doors and drawers, and even a sink inside. "Have a seat." The tech motioned to a stool next to the white table that folded down from the wall. "I'll swab your hands first and then take your prints." Feeling like a criminal, Ashley nodded. The sun had already set, but the light beaming down on her inside the van was intense. She guessed it had to be in order for the techs to perform their jobs. Hearing a noise outside, she looked up. Detective Lanson appeared at the open door. I know these are too big, he said as he placed folded clothing and a pair of athletic socks and shoes inside the van, but it's all I've got. I don't mind, thank you. He nodded and then closed the van door. Ashley was grateful that the detective had allowed her to be processed here rather than taking her to the police station. She felt humiliated enough as it was. If she'd been forced to go to the station, the police officers there would likely have assumed she was guilty and treated her as such. She wondered whether Maggie thought she was capable of murder, but more importantly, did Detective Lanson believe she had killed Neil? Earlier, when they'd been in the office discussing Neil's death, she thought the detective believed it was suicide. But now, she wasn't so sure. She knew the police were trained to pretend they were on the suspect's side in order to get a confession. Had she misread Lansing? Had he been playing her? After her prints was taken, Ashley changed out of her clothes and into the orange University of Tennessee t-shirt and gray fleece shorts that the detective had loaned her. The shirt fit like a dress, but at least the shorts had a drawstring she could adjust. She'd taken one look at the size 12 cross trainers and had decided to go barefoot. They had let her keep her undergarments, which she counted as a blessing. Once she was dressed, Detective Lanson reappeared. He glanced at Maggie as though he was telling her he needed to speak to Ashley in private. The tech gave her a polite nod and then exited the van. Ashley was glad they were alone. She wanted to set the detective straight. I didn't kill Neil, she said, her voice firm. He looked her straight in the eyes. The truth will come out. It always does. What did that mean exactly? Was he saying her innocence could be proven? Or did he really believe she was guilty? She studied his face but couldn't get a clear reading. You saw the note, right? He asked. The question ignited hope that the forensic team had found a lead. Was Lanson actually about to spill some of the information they discovered? The one under Neil's left arm? Yes, I saw it. Do you know what it says? He confessed to helping Ethan. You were right. He blamed himself for the security guard's death, and he mentioned Ray. He felt guilty for not saving his brother. There was nothing in the note about the doctor's murder. He probably didn't know about it. If he hadn't yet found out about Dr. Fisher's murder, then that meant Neil could have been dead even longer than Ashley had originally suspected. So you believe Neil committed suicide? The note will have to be checked against his known handwriting, but yeah, I do. Alicia could stop worrying about being arrested for murder. Does that mean that I'm free to leave now? She asked. Uh-huh. The detective reached into his pocket and pulled out her pistol. Be careful with this, he warned, handing her a weapon. Just because you don't need a license to carry doesn't mean you should. She nodded. Where's your car? He asked. I parked it at the model home. Come on, he said. I'll drive you over. The model home was only a block away, but since night had fallen, she was grateful not to have to walk. She was pretty sure Ethan didn't know about Neil's death yet, and he would have swooped in and destroyed the files and the suicide note, but he could still show up at any time. Ashley climbed into the passenger seat of Detective Lanson's car. Don't leave the state until the ME ruling comes in, he told her. She hadn't planned on it. She had no idea where Brett was, and she wouldn't leave without him. I'll be staying at the lake house unless something happens. She curled the dangling drawstring of the shorts around her finger. It wouldn't be long before her waist would begin to expand. She hoped that Ethan would be back behind bars before that day arrived. The detective pulled his Ford up next to Ashley's sedan. Thank you for the ride, for the clothes, and for saving me the hassle of going to the police station, she said, pushing the car door open. No problem. She paused before getting out. There was one thing she wanted to clear up, for her own peace of mind. Did you know that I was innocent before you read the suicide note, or not until after? She asked Lanson. He smiled, his blue eyes sparkling. What do you think, Nancy? She returned his smile, realizing that he had figured out what had really happened as soon as he laid eyes on Neil. That was his job, after all. Ashley stepped out of the detective car. The concrete that had been baked by the sun during the day still felt warm beneath her bare feet. She slid into her sedan and strapped on her seatbelt. She watched Lansing's taillights disappear from her rearview mirror before unlocking her cell phone. The clock on the screen glowed 10:27 p.m. Tapping her contacts, she called Brett again. Her call went straight to voicemail. She checked the next message she sent earlier, looking for the delivered tag. It wasn't there. He still had his phone turned off, meaning he was still angry. She guessed he wouldn't be at the lake house when she returned. Signing, she dropped her cell onto the center console. The second the phone escaped her fingers, it rang. Maybe it was Brett. She snatched it back up and looked at the screen. Fear raced through her. No caller ID. Her ex-husband had blocked his number when he called her, just like the person calling now. Hello? I got a surprise for you, Ethan said. Then the call disconnected. See you in the next chapter.